So, the first topic to start with CENVET credit rules. (2004). What is CENVET credit? During your articleship, you have already dealt with VAT. What happens in case of VAT? A dealer is either a manufacturer or a trader who buys the goods by paying VAT is eligible to avail the credit of that amount. And when he sells the goods on which he is having the liability of VAT, the credit availed by him is utilized to set off his liability. Exactly same is the system of CENVET credit. Exactly same. Only difference, who will get, when he will get, how much he will get, where to utilize, that will certainly differ. But the concept is same, right? So here I call it, what is CENVET credit? This is a system or you can call it a procedure for avoidance of cascading effect of tax on happening of taxable event every time. System for avoidance of cascading effect of tax on happening of taxable event every time. Now, we know that very basic concept that tax cannot be levied unless there is a taxable event, right. So, every time there is a taxable event, there is a tax liability, right. But how to ensure that every time we don't end up paying the full taxes again and again and again? So, government has given us a system, or you can call it a procedure. I call it a system or procedure because actually cash is not involved in these rules. If somebody is having excess credit, it will not be given back to him cash. If he is liable to pay, he is not liable to pay CENVET credit, he is liable to pay excise duty or service tax. No cash involved in these rules. That's why I call it a system or it is a procedure, right. Now, how many times taxable event will take place? Generally, it is one time only, but output of one manufacturer is input for another. Output of second manufacturer is input for the third person, isn't it? Just take a small example. Copper ore extracted from the mines. This itself is a product, right? But since it is taken by doing the mining activity, and mining is not subject to excise, No duty is payable on that. Now this copper ore is given to copper manufacturer. He will put the ore in the furnace, all external things will be taken out and this will become a pure copper, right? This copper goes to a sheet manufacturer. From sheet, it goes to tube manufacturer, copper tube. This copper tube is used by AC manufacturer. The chain can go on. So from copper ore up to AC, how many taxable events are there? 4 times. So if every time full tax is levied, what will happen? Just I am giving you imaginary figures, right? The tax liability here 100, here 200, here 300, here 400. How much total amount of the tax will go to the government? This will be 1000 rupees, right? Now under SENVAT credit what happens? First person will pay 100 rupees as the tax. When it comes to the sheet manufacturer, he says, I have already paid 100 rupees of excise duty while buying copper. He will get the credit of 100 rupees. Here the tax liability happens to be 200, but how much he will be actually paying? He is paying 100 rupees more. Right? 100 rupees he has paid by way of credit. Right? The invoice issued by the sheet manufacturer to tube manufacturer, how much amount of duty will be shown therein? 100 or 200? It will be showing 200 rupees because he has paid 200 in 2 parts. 100 rupees he has already paid on inputs, 100 rupees he is paying on the finished goods, effectively he has paid 200. So the invoice issued by the sheet manufacturer to the tube manufacturer will show that he has paid the duty of 200 rupees. Right? Now the tube manufacturer's liability is 300. What will happen? He has already paid 200 on the sheet. Again how much amount he will pay? Again he pays 100 rupees and 200 out of SENVAT credit. His liability is settled. Same thing at the 4th stage also. He also pays 100 rupees, 300 settled out of SENVAT credit. Right? Effectively how much amount of tax has gone to government? This is the difference that SENVAT credit makes. When I say it is a system for avoidance of cascading effect, this is an example to show how the cascading effect will affect. If you remove SENVAT credit, the total amount of tax collected by the government from stage 1 to stage 4 will become 1000 rupees, and because of SENVAT credit, the total amount of tax collected by the government is only 400 rupees. Is this clear? Now same thing you can apply for service also. I've added that with the manufacturer. Similarly, you can add it with the service. One service provider giving service to another, and second person is giving to third person is giving service to fourth person, same thing will happen. Right? So this is a system or procedure for avoidance of cascading effect of tax on happening of taxable event every time. Is it clear? Applicability, where the provisions of SENVET credit are applicable. Now refer rule number 1. Rule number 1. What does it tell you? These rules may be called SENVET credit rules 2004. That title is already there. They extend to whole of India. But the proviso says, provided that nothing contained in these rules relating to availment and utilization of credit or service tax shall apply to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Why? For the purpose of service tax, we divide India in two parts, taxable territory and non-taxable territory. Jammu and Kashmir is in non-taxable territory. So when there is no tax liability, there is no question of credit. But the same is not there in relation to manufacturer. Manufacturer in Jammu and Kashmir are liable to pay excise. And if they are liable to pay excise, they are eligible to avail SENVET credit also. Right? So here, applicability, I'll divide in two parts. For manufacturers and for service providers. For manufacturers, this is applicable throughout India, and for service provider in two parts. In Jammu and Kashmir and other parts of country. As far as service provider is concerned, nothing. Other parts of the country, this is available. Right? Is this what you understand? Right? Now read the thing again. This says, provided that nothing contained in these rules relating to availment and utilization of credit or service tax shall apply to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. It is saying something more. Right? Now try to understand. A manufacturer in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, he cannot avail credit for service tax. He is a manufacturer, we said it is applicable. Right? But the rule is not saying whether manufacturer can avail, service provider cannot avail. That is not saying. What it is saying, anything relating to service tax will not be applicable in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So if a manufacturer is there in the Jammu and Kashmir, he is receiving the input services, he cannot avail credit of those input services. Meaning changes. So we are not saying only this. It is something more. Even a manufacturer in the state of Jammu and Kashmir is not eligible to avail credit for his input services. Right. So that will make things more clearer. no credit can be availed for input services by a manufacturer in Jammu and Kashmir. I hope now it becomes more clearer. If a service provider is there in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, he is not liable to pay tax, he will not get any credit. What about manufacturer in the state of Jammu and Kashmir? He will not get credit for input services. Why? Service tax is not applicable, right? And if you are writing an answer in relation to SENVET credit, then you have to give a specific reference that as per rule number 1 of the SENVET credit rules, any of the provisions related to availment and utilization of credit of service tax are not applicable in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. That is the technical answer. The service tax provisions are not applicable there. That's why this is the reason. But here we have to be very specific in the answer. In your answer, make it sure that you make the reference, or rather give a proper reference of the rule or the section. If that is missing, according to me, your answer is 50%. Maybe your entire content is absolutely right. But from the perspective of the examiner, if the rule number is missing, if the section number is missing, your answer is worth 50% only. Is this clear? Who can avail SENVET credit? Who can avail? Generally, who is authorized? Till now, whatever we have discussed, based on that, only 2 persons, that is either a manufacturer or a service provider. But for limited purpose, certain other persons are also having the right. So, generally, who is authorized? Manufacturer. Number 2, service providers. Right? But this is subject to condition only if they are liable to pay central excise duty or service tax. I'll elaborate on this line a little later. What does it mean? If a manufacturer is liable, then only he will get the credit. If no liability, no credit. Similarly, service provider, if he is liable to pay service tax, he will get the credit, otherwise no credit. Other persons who are entitled for the limited purpose, first stage dealer. He is certainly a trader. There is a proper definition for the term first stage dealer. Then similarly, we have second stage dealer. Then registered importer. Then input service distributor. They have a right to avail credit, but for limited purpose. Avail the credit and pass it on to somebody else. They cannot use that credit. How that will happen? When the topic comes, I'll elaborate. Right? Now say the first stage dealer. I said he is a trader. He is not a manufacturer. He is not a service provider. Why he should get the credit? Procedure says that if he is buying the goods in bulk directly from the manufacturer, he can avail the credit for the duty he has already paid on his purchases, and the same amount of credit he can pass on to his customer by issuing the invoice. So one trader, he is buying 100 tons of material from the manufacturer. Now he sells in the lots of 1 ton, 2 ton, 3 tons, 4 ton, 5 ton each. So to every person he is selling, he will pass on the credit. Effectively, the credit availed and credit passed on is equal to 0. Credit availed minus credit passed on will always be 0. So that's why I say limited purpose. So they can avail the credit and they can pass it on to somebody else. They will never get the refund of credit. In general, you can say standard credit is never refundable in cash. In general, there are exceptions, but in general you can say standard credit is not refundable in cash. Is this clear? Who can avail the credit? So credit can be availed generally by the manufacturer and service provider if he is liable to pay either central excise duty, not only excise, because excise is central as well as state both. Specifically saying central excise duty or service tax. For a limited purpose, they are entitled. Is this clear? Credit is available for manufacturer and service provider. And here we will have first stage dealer, second stage dealer. Then we have registered importer, and then we have input service distributor. Manufacturer and service provider, they can avail credit for capital goods, what is capital goods? Just refer rule number 2, first line. Only first line, because that is a long definition. I will come back to that. Rule number 2A. Then inputs. Rule number 2K. Number 3. Input services. 2L. So this is rule 2A, this is rule 2K, this is rule 2L. There is a proper definition for everything. So before credit is availed, we have to ensure that an article fits into the definition. Every article that we buy, it is not necessary that it will fit into the definition of either this or this. Why? We'll come back to that. And general meaning cannot be applied because this is defined. The meaning given in accountancy cannot be applied for the purpose of SENVET credit. Right? So when we say a manufacturer and service provider can avail credit for capital goods, input and input services, so first of all, those goods should fit into the either capital goods or inputs, then credit can be availed. Similarly, a service received should fit into the definition of input service before credit is availed. So we don't say credit is available for every goods or all the services availed. Credit is available for capital goods or inputs or input services, provided those fit within the definition of rule 2A or 2K or 2L, otherwise not. Got this clear? Right? So before we make an entry for credit, you have to be very sure that how come this article fits into the definition. If not, you cannot avail the credit. Right? Then these people, they don't have any capital goods or input services. They don't have. Now you will get confused. Every trader is having some capital goods. Right? But definition says for a manufacturer, capital goods are those which are used in the factory. For a service provider, capital goods are those which are used for providing the output services. Now the dealer doesn't have either manufacturer or service. It means he doesn't have capital goods and inputs. Right? Input services are also those which are used directly or indirectly in relation to manufacture or in relation to output service. Now again, the dealer doesn't have any manufacturer or output service. So effectively, he neither is having capital goods, nor he is having inputs, nor he is having input services. Then what for he will get the credit? He will get the credit only in relation to the goods which he is buying for resale. And those goods are not referred as input. He will get the credit for a limited purpose. And what is the limited purpose? Passing on the credit to somebody else. Right? So he will get the credit only for the goods which he is buying for resale. Same is importer as well. Only for the goods procured for resale. Input service distributor. Refer definition under Rule 2, clause number M. Only first 3 words of the definition. 2M. What are first 3 words? It means an office. Underline the word office. This is not the factory. This is not the place of service provider where from services are given. This is only an office. So in the office there are no capital goods, no inputs, but input services are possible. So as far as input service distributor is concerned, only for eligible input services. I am not saying eligible only for availing the credit of input services. Here I have changed the word, this is only for eligible input services. So there are 2 things now. First of all, the service should be an input service, and number 2, it should be eligible. Then only he can avail the credit. What is the meaning of eligibility? That is something more to be discussed in detail later. Right? So this is credit is available for the manufacturer and service provider in respect of capital goods, input services. All 3 terms are defined. Capital goods rule number 2A, inputs rule number 2K, input services rule number 2L. Right? So before credit is availed for any of the goods or services, we have to ensure that those goods or services fit in somewhere in the definition. If not, those are neither capital goods nor input services. We cannot avail the credit of that. Right? These people, first state dealer, second state dealer, as well as the registered importer, these people neither have capital goods nor input services within the meaning of these definitions. So they can avail the credit only for the goods which they have procured for resale, and the purpose of availing the credit, passing on to somebody else. Right? Similarly, input service distributor, this is only an office. Only an office. Under any condition, factory cannot be input service distributor. Right? This is only an office. Office can avail credit in respect of input services, provided those input services are eligible. Got it clear? So who will avail the credit, for what, who are eligible generally, who are eligible for limited purposes, which are the things on which services are available. This is only the brief introduction about the credit. Everything, every rule you have to read word by word. Right? Not only read, every word should be crystal clear to you. And when you get that clarity, you start loving the subject.